Hi, smart moms and dads. Welcome to another episode of the Brainy Moms Podcast, brought to you today by Learning RX Brain Training Centers. I'm Dr. Amy Moore, and I am here with Jen Robb. Jen is a nurse practitioner, a wellness advocate, a coach, and author of the book Warrior Mom Rising, a mom's battle plan to advocate, overcome, and thrive. She's a mom who's walked through the fire of teen mental health struggles and is here today to offer some practical hope to other moms navigating hard parenting seasons. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, thanks, Amy. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I was excited to talk to you because I think that this is an area that is ubiquitous in its struggle, but not talked about enough. I think a lot of times as parents, it's hard to admit that our child has mental health struggles because we feel guilty or we're afraid that people will judge us, that it's our fault, or that we've created an environment that,
Mm,
has caused our children or whatever, right? So I don't think we have natural conversations about it.
mhm.
And I love how vulnerable you are in your book. I love that you've made it your mission to tell other moms, I see you, God sees you. I just love everything that you're doing. So tell us a little bit about yourself, why you felt compelled to write this book, what's happening there.
Yeah. So we live outside of Dallas, Texas. I've been married to my college sweetheart for 25 years, three kids, two boys and a girl. They're 20, 19, and 17 now. Nurse practitioner for over 25 years, recently board certified in functional medicine, and then writing the book. So the book actually launched in May, but the book was really born out of really, for me, just obedience to God in writing the book. Um, but because I felt every single thing that you just said, right? As a mom, I tell people all the time, like we were like the white picket fence, typical all-American kind of family, right? Been married for a long time, raised in the church, all of the things when you check on the boxes, right? And so when Chloe is my daughter's name, when she started to struggle with her mental health, it kind of caught us all off guard. Like, where is this coming from? Our boys never had issues like this. Um, and there was a lot of guilt and a lot of questions like, what did I miss? How did I miss it? How did this happen? And we really didn't talk about it with anybody. It was really our family, other than like my parents knowing, it was really kind of just us dealing with it because of the stigma that comes with mental health. Like there's always this, ooh, she must be crazy, right? Like that's not it at all. Or how did you allow that to happen? And I think as moms, we really struggle with feeling and carrying that burden, not only carrying the burden for our children, for their pain that they are having, but we just don't want to share that with anybody. Like we want to internalize it and think, "Oh, I can handle it on my own." But what happens is that ultimately leads you to like burnout and full-on exhaustion, right? Which is not a good place to be when you're trying to deal with a child who is struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I see is that when we don't talk about it, then it doesn't necessarily show our struggling child that we see the struggle or that we're willing to acknowledge the struggle or that we want to hide the struggle.
Mhm. Well, but how do you expect them to step up and have a voice for themselves when you don't want to talk about it,
Right.
right? But there is a lot of shame in with your child that's struggling, right? With Chloe, hers wasn't necessarily anything that we had done. Hers actually stemmed from a sexual assault from another peer. And of course, that triggers a whole nother level of emotions for a parent, right? Because it's like, well, how did I miss this? I mean, Chloe was the baby girl, you know? We were far more cautious with her than we ever were, even with our two boys. Um, and so it was kind of an eye-opening moment too. Like that stuff can happen anywhere at any time, no matter how cautious you are, and that's not your fault, right? Like, and I think moms need to hear that. Like, that's not your fault, right? Like, you didn't do anything wrong. you probably couldn't have prevented it anyway. I mean, short of keeping the child completely isolated in your house in a bubble, never to go anywhere, right? And I think that that's one of the things that like I realized through the struggle was that like I felt alone, but I don't want other moms to feel alone, right? Because we need to talk about it. We need to have open conversations about it. And the other thing that I figured out is that for me, like navigating the medical world, psychiatrists, counselors, therapists, and all of those things, that's second nature because I've been in medicine for over 20 years. But for a lot of moms, that is not second nature. And oftentimes, what they tell me is, well, I can't push back if I don't like what they're saying, or I don't think what they're saying is in the best interest. For me, it was pushing back against the psychiatrist who was saying, you just need to put her on all of these medications. No, one medication is okay, but I don't want so many medications. And then we have the side effects and all the other ramifications that come from that. But I also wanted her to deal with the root cause of the issue, right? Because that's the only way that we could really get her to heal is to deal with what was causing her the pain and the mental health, the anxiety, the depression, and ultimately self-harm.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I think that oftentimes there is this implied power differential, right, between who's wearing the white coat, you know, doctor, psychiatrist, nurse practitioner, even, right, and the patient, and most certainly the patient's parent, who doesn't even feel like it's their appointment sometimes. And so, I was at a conference in the spring and I had a parent ask me a question. She said something like, well, my child's pediatrician said that I was required to put him on this medication because he met this criteria for this diagnosis. And I kind of tilted my head, looked at her, and said, the doctor's not the boss of you,
Right.
right? I mean, you get to participate in your child's medical decisions and mental health treatment decisions. And I think that that isn't something that everyone understands.
Well, remember, I mean, like we are taught, to respect authority, right? And physicians, anybody in the medical field, I mean, it doesn't have to be a physician, are always typically in a position of authority, right? But one thing that I've discovered is that modern medicine has changed a lot, right? And I mean, I've been in modern medicine for 25 years, and now that I'm board certified in functional medicine, there's so much more to root cause healing than just putting a band-aid over it with some sort of pill, right? And I feel like sometimes in modern medicine we get trapped in this box of, well, if you just take this pill, and if that pill causes side effects, we'll put you on another pill to counter out the side effects, right? But we're not really treating anything. We're really just putting a band-aid over it and hoping that we can contain the bleeding, right? So to say. But I think when mental health, there's so much more to that. Yes, like in Chloe's case, yes, she had a real traumatic event that caused PTSD and all the other things, right? But a lot of cases, we're so accustomed to being that they are in the position of authority that we can't push back and question a little bit like, why am I doing this? And I think it's important to realize that your kids don't really have a voice in that circumstance, right? They don't know what they need. They don't know what they should ask for. And like when I think back to Chloe, like Chloe was in no position to advocate or speak out as to what she needed. She couldn't even tell me what she needed in that moment, right? So, and it's really the mom's or the parents' job to kind of step up and say, now listen, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's too much, right? And it's the same thing with therapists, right? Like we went through 3 therapists before we found the right one for Chloe. Not all therapists are the same, right? And that's okay. They all have a purpose and they all have their niche, so to say, that they're best at. But for Chloe, I didn't need someone that was just going to listen. I needed someone who's going to challenge her to bring up the trauma so that she could heal from it, right? And that person was somebody who was trained very specifically in adolescence and trauma and cognitive behavior therapy, right? Like EMDR.
Right.
That was huge, huge for Chloe. And so I want moms to know that, like, not only advocating, it takes a little bit of time to kind of learn, right? And especially I hear like moms say, well, I'm not a very strong personality. Well, that's okay. I'm not telling you to go full throttle mama bear in there, right? Like, but you do have to be a little bit okay with pushing back and finding almost empowerment in that, right? Because you are the only one that has your child's best interest at heart.
Right. I mean, you're going to be your child's best advocate. No one is going to fight as hard for your child as you will. I mean, you're the mama bear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 100%.
So, as a medical professional, do you bristle or do you have like this visceral response to patients who push back on your recommendations? And if you do, what are some tips that you could give moms on how to ask the questions? What are the alternatives? Could you explain the pros and cons of this to me in a way that doesn't put the psychiatrist or psychologist or physician on a defensive mode?
And I think that that's just really what it's about, right? Like, in my practice, I deal a lot with obesity medicine right now. And people ask me all the time, well, I don't know why I should do that. And I think it's totally fine. Like, and I don't take offense to it, right? Because that's your right. But I think it's all in your position and your posture almost, right? Like if you come at them like almost like you're wrong and in that defensive mode, well, they're naturally going to get defensive back, right? And I think it's just about approaching it by saying, I hear you, but I'm not sure that in this instance it's what's best for her, and this is why, or him, and this is why, right? I think it's really about just positioning yourself. I don't want to say like in a submissive position, but almost just like you're respecting their authority, but you're just almost questioning it, but not in a rude or harsh way, right? And I just think that that's okay. And you need to be okay with their answer. Like if their answer comes back and says, well, this is what I think, because if they say I am the doctor, to me, that's a red flag. I'd be
Sure.
like, thanks for your time. I'm out, right? And that's okay. Like if you have to walk out and say, no thanks, but no thanks, that's okay. Like, and I really feel like they just need to hear that it's okay. It's okay to question and to ask them what they're basing that on, right? Because like, and I'm sure you've seen it too. Like, even dealing with my kids when they were small, like with their pediatrician, right? Certain doctors in their certain specialties, they get kind of trapped in this box, right? And they only know how to treat or think with inside this box because that's all they treat, right? Just like with a pediatrician, for instance, they only treat pediatrics. And so sometimes if you bring in a zebra, right, they don't know how to respond to that zebra because it's outside of the box. And so it's the same thing with psychiatrists, right? They think that just because, I mean, for instance, your kid is suffering with anxiety and depression. Well, the other 25 kids that they just treated this week all have anxiety and depression, and they did all of those exact things, right? But those modalities are not necessarily what your particular child needs, right? And I just think that we have to get in a position to say, I respect you and I hear you, but I'm going to question because her well-being or his well-being is my highest priority.
Yeah. And I love that you're kind of giving permission to moms to say that in a respectful way, right? To adopt this mindset of curiosity,
Hmm.
right? Help me understand why this is your recommendation.
Right.
Yeah. So there are a couple quotes from your book that really resonated with me, and I would love for you to speak to them.
Mhm.
And so one of them was, your child doesn't need a perfect mom, they need a present mom.
So I think oftentimes as moms, we get so caught up in trying to do everything for our kid and make sure that they have the perfect life, right? That they have all of the perfect clothes, they have all of the things that they've ever wanted and needed. But I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in that that we almost remove ourselves from being present in the moment with them, right? None of us are perfect. There's not one person on this planet who is perfect. And that's okay, right? And I think that kids also need to see us, our imperfections, and see us for who we are, right? And know that our heart behind everything that we do is out of love and support for them, right? But we have to own our imperfections, right? But it's more about putting the phone down or the computer down and comparing yourself to Johnny and Susie over there for what they're doing, and just saying, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? Right? Like, and just being in the moment with them without all of the added pressures of what the Joneses, so to say, are doing. Right? And I think that that's really hard for sometimes for moms, because we feel like if our kid doesn't have every single thing that the Joneses have, that they're missing out. And I don't think that that's the case, right? All of our kids don't need everything that everybody else has. They just need us as their mom to be present, to interact with them, to show up, right? To show up to events, to show up in love and encouragement, and to cheer them on. And I think that's far more important than trying to be perfect all of the time.
Yeah, that's great advice. I was thinking as you were talking, you know, we don't want our kids to suffer and we want to fix things. And, you know, our child gets a diagnosis, particularly a mental health diagnosis. And I think sometimes our instinct is to treat the diagnosis, right? Okay, this is what they were just diagnosed with. Therefore, I'm going to research everything I possibly can about the possible treatments. And then we're going to start with the first one and then the second one until we find one that fixes the diagnosis. When in reality, shouldn't we be looking at the individual child and maybe the symptom that's screaming the loudest? And I mean, it isn't about erasing a diagnosis, right? I mean, it's about being fully present with our child suffering.
Right. And in those moments, like Chloe's anxiety is different because it stems from a different root cause, right? Your child's anxiety may be because they're being bullied, or something, or someone said something mean to them, right? That's different. And so that's why I said with the psychiatrist, like, just because they want to put you on these 5 pills to treat that symptom, that's not always the best in what's best for your particular child, right? And every child is different. Every child responds differently, right? And so, with like when you talk about medicines, like with Chloe, they wanted to have her on 3 different medicines. And I was like, mm-mm. We'll put her on one to help her kind of deal with the right now anxiety and kind of the depression that we're feeling. But we're going to go on the hunt for the root cause, right? And in that, I had to be present, right? And present minded with her, right? So that when she was triggered, so to say, or she was having an anxiety attack, I noticed, right? I could see those subtle signs. I was there in the moment to be with her and to comfort her. The other thing that I think that's important is that it's not our job as the mama to carry the child's pain and burden, right? And so oftentimes we get trapped in this, I'm the mom, so I have to carry it for everybody else. It's your job as the mom to show up, right? To support them through their struggles, to love them through their struggles, right? To advise them when it's needed. But if you don't let them feel what they need to feel, what lessons are they really learning, right? Or if I would have tried to just fix it all for Chloe, and I would have immediately, just said, you're going to have to get over it and we're going to fix this and it's okay and moving on, she wouldn't have learned how to work through those feelings that she was feeling of the anxiety, the depression, the shame, the guilt, all of those things. And I think that that's important for mamas to understand is that you're never going to be perfect in how you show up. That's just it's you're not going to always be perfect, and that's okay. But are you there when they need you? Are you present in the moment to help them through their struggles and to teach them and guide them, right? And I just hear it all the time from women that say, "Ugh, I have to carry so much." Everybody is struggling. My kids are struggling with their grades and my husband's struggling with his job, but it's not your job. Your job is not to carry it all. Your job is to support them, right? And I think when we give ourselves permission a little bit to say, I'm here, I love you, but I can't do the work for you, then we take some of that burden and lessen the risk of burnout on ourselves.
Yeah, you talk about the importance of setting emotional boundaries. Yeah, talk a little bit about maybe some tips for doing that.
Well, again, it's about telling your child or your spouse in some cases, like, I love you, I'm here for you, but I have to protect my own sanity too, right? Because the other thing about women is that we typically get so burnt out and exhausted in the moment, taking care of everybody else's problems that we forget about us. And then we're burning on empty. And then you're not helping anyone, right? Because you can't pour from your empty cup. And so you have to find ways to kind of refresh your soul, right? And to keep your spirit and drive alive so that you can help support and love and cheer them on in all of their other struggles, right? And some of that is just taking a walk. For me, it was listening to worship music in my car, right? But I think that oftentimes too we let people take advantage of that nurturing side of us. And then when we try to now set a boundary, there's guilt and shame that comes in, right? And then now it's compounded by all of the other emotions, and now you've got guilt and shame on top of it. And I think that for moms, it's important to know you're okay to feel that way. But if you don't take time for yourself and you stay trapped in that thoughts and those cycles and that burnout, you're useful to no one, to no
Well,
one.
and I think you talk about in your book how taking care of yourself is actually modeling how to differentiate yourself, right, emotionally from your child's emotions or your spouse's emotions, or that's important. That's an important lesson for your kids to see too.
100%. It's a lesson for them. But it goes back to the same thing, right? Like that you own that you're not perfect, right? You own the fact that you have imperfections, but you also own the fact that you're learning and you're growing and you're transforming, right? Into someone who you were designed to be, right? And that's good. Like for Chloe, I mean, she saw the grief from me, right? And I feel like we had multiple conversations. Like, I don't know how to help you anymore, right? Like, I don't know what to do for you. You are going to have to step in and take ownership of your feelings. And you are going to have to do the work with a therapist in order to make yourself better. I can't do that for you anymore. I mean, I remember telling her those things. And through that, she was like, okay. And I think the other part to that is like when I think about Chloe, like, and she was struggling, she never wanted me to hurt, right? She never wanted me to feel sadness or pain because of her, right? And I think we oftentimes forget that our kids do love us, though sometimes they're not the best at expressing that, right? And they, have often thrown tantrums and we're ruining their lives and so on, right? But they do not want us to hurt as their parents. So I think it's important for them to see us grieve and show that emotional response to their pain, right? Because then it's teaching them that it's okay to have emotion. It's okay to feel it, but what it's not okay to do is to stay stuck, right? That's what I wanted Chloe to know. It's okay for you to cry and to have pain and grief and shame and all those things. But what you're going to do is you're going to live in that moment for that moment, and then you're going to get up and you're going to rise again, right? And we're going to continue to fight this battle day in and day out. And I'm going to lock arms with you. I can't fight it for you, but I'm going to be standing right here with you, fighting alongside of you. And then she feels empowered, right? Because now she's got this strength that mama's there, but I have to do the work. I have to fight the battle. I have to deal with my own emotions and get to the root of what is causing me to feel this way.
It is estimated that there are over 6 million children in the US diagnosed with ADHD. Most children diagnosed with ADHD have a cluster of weak cognitive skills that we all rely on for focusing and staying on task. Skills like working memory, long-term memory, and processing speed. At Learning RX, we create a one-on-one brain training program that's tailored to help address the root cause of your child's biggest challenges. Visit learningrx.com to learn how we're helping kids and teens with ADHD significantly improve their cognitive skills. Get started at learningrx.com or head over to our show notes for links for more helpful resources, including some free brain training exercises you can try at home.
So I just had this really powerful analogy that, I mean, isn't that what the Lord does for us?
Mhm. And I talk about that in the book too. Like every day we have to get up and put on the armor of God, right? And that's what I told Chloe. Like, God is right there too, even though you can't see him. But in those moments of your deepest pain, knowing that he's there and feeling his presence, right? Again, it goes back to just being present. And that's what they need from us, right? There were so many times that Chloe would come out of a therapy session and be like, I mean, you could just tell she was a mess, tears, and especially when she was doing EMDR, right? Because that is resurfacing
Sure.
all of the painful things so that we can retrain the brain and heal those parts of the brain where the trauma is rooted. And she'd be like, you just knew. She didn't want to talk. But what she wanted was for me to hug her and to put my arms around her and to say, I love you and I'm here, right? The same way that God does for us every day, right? And I think it's also important for parents to know that life is always going to life. Okay. It doesn't matter how much we think we have it together or perfect. There are always going to be struggles. And God never said there wasn't going to be struggles. Not
But
one
he
time did he
promised us
ever
that
say,
there would be.
right. Did
Yeah.
he ever say, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that you have God on your side, right, to help you, even in our alone most of moments. I mean, in our the times when we feel the most alone as a parent, we still have God on our side, right? And I think that that is one of the bigger things that kept me really grounded when I wanted to go hide and cry in a hole, you know?
Yeah. Um, so I love the picture of the Ephesians 6 warrior. And as I was reading your book, and I call myself an ADHD warrior, so I love the term. Talk a little bit about why you titled your book Warrior Mom.
I really feel like out of it is, and when we were in the depths of it with Chloe, we were fighting a battle, right? Not only were we fighting a battle physically, but we were fighting the spiritual battle with her as well, right? Because I really felt like the enemy was really trying to take her out. And so every day we have to get up and we have to put on that battle armor, right? And so when we do that, the warrior within us rises, right? There's a warrior mom or warrior dad in all of us, right? It's just figuring out how to let that one out, right? And I think it's very poignant because I always felt like I was on a battlefield. I never felt like I was just, in my house, just dealing with everyday troubles, right? I was really on a battlefield. And I think it was just a natural title. Like it literally just came out of nowhere that this is what it was going to be called because the warrior mom in us needs to rise, right? And we need to rise physically to help our child, but also like in a spiritual way, right? We have to rise in the battle and pray and bring all of those petitions to God and say, "Help me out because I am fighting a battle that's not against my flesh and blood." Right? Things that I can't even see, and I felt like there were many times that the enemy was just, they were going to take her out, you know? And honestly, Amy, I think the biggest transformation of all of this came from when I finally surrendered Chloe over to God.
Mm.
Right? You know, April 4th of 23 was like the moment that was just the lowest of low points with Chloe, right? My two boys had found her unresponsive in her room, face down in a pool of vomit. Call 911, get her to the hospital, all of their lab testing. Her alcohol level was 4 times the lethal limit. And the doctor in the ER at the Children's Hospital looked at me and he was like, "There is no reason that she should be alive." And I said, "Oh, but there is," right? She is anointed. And God has a purpose for her story. Though it is painful, there is a purpose for her story. And he was right, though. When you look at it from the human perspective, there was no reason for her to be alive. Not only was her alcohol level ridiculously high, I mean, Chloe's 100 pounds, right? She's very petite. She could have suffocated in the pillow, she could have aspirated in the vomit, right? And so, yes, she probably shouldn't be alive. But I knew that God had a point in a huge purpose for her life, right? And so, but I remember coming home from that hospital and she was so exhausted physically, but emotionally and mentally too. She was so weak and she was covered in vomit, just like it was literally just stuck in her hair. And she couldn't even bathe herself, right? And I had to take her in the shower and wash her hair and get the vomit off of her. And it was literally in that moment that you feel so helpless as a parent and as a mom because your child is too weak and like you don't know what to do. But it was, I heard God say literally, "Jen, surrender her to me. As much as you love her, I love her more." And I think that that's poignant for parents to realize, right? Like the circumstances may not always be, and the outcomes may not be what we want, right? And our child may not be fixed as quick as we want them to be fixed because we live in this delusional Amazon society that it's going to be fixed tomorrow. And just because I pray about it, it's going to be fixed tomorrow, right? But remember, God's timing is not ours timing. I mean, this was a 3 or 4 year battle that we were in with Chloe. And I think that that's important. The surrender comes in releasing that you've done what you do. And surrendering doesn't mean that you're washing your hands and you're like, "Well, peace out, Chloe, good luck." You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that. It means that you're still doing actions and you're still doing and advocating and pushing and guiding them and loving them. but you've released the burden from yourself and given it to someone who has far more power than you do, right? And that was kind of the moment that was most freeing, right? As a warrior mom, because I am fiercely, I am a fierce mama bear, right? But to know that God loves our children more than we do, that's powerful and it's freeing.
Yeah.
And you can trust him with your children. And I think that mamas need to hear that, right? Like, and again, it wasn't in that moment of surrender that I finally said, okay, here, you can please help her. That I snapped my fingers and I woke up the next morning and it was all better, because it wasn't, right? It was still a grueling 2 years. But I had his promise that he was going to take care of her. And I could hold on to that in those darkest moments. And I just really want mamas to hear that, right? You're not alone. You're never alone. And there's real strength in that, right? There's strength in knowing who stands behind you, right? With his angel army. Who is standing behind you in this battle? Just mamas need to hear that. Mamas need to know.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you didn't sugarcoat this, right? You didn't say, give it to God and then all will be well, right? You literally just said, I got to turn this over to who has the power that I don't have. And in reality, the enemy waits around, right, for you to grow the kingdom and strengthen the kingdom like that by giving God this responsibility, right? Or giving it over. And so you talk about that, right? How the guilt and the shame are lies from the enemy. And so I think that that needs to be something that moms expect to happen too, right? That it isn't going to be easy.
Mm-mm. It's not. I mean, there wasn't a day in any of this. And there's still days that, she she may have a little bit of anxiety, right? And I don't know that that's ever going to go away. But that's okay, because now she knows that she's a daughter of the king, right? But she also now has the proper tools to help her cope when those moments creep in, right? When the enemy tries to attack her, she now has a whole nother skill set that she didn't have before. And, again, that goes back to finding the perfect therapist for her, right? Finding somebody that could equip her with something that I couldn't equip her with. I mean, I can speak life into her and I can and tell her that she's a daughter of the king, but I don't have the skill set to teach her the coping mechanisms that she needed, right? And so again, you can't battle this alone, right? You can't. You have to depend and ask for help. And you can lean on people that have the expertise where you don't,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we're all here for. And I think that that's important too, is because as a mama, we think we have to do it all, but we don't. We don't have to do it all. We were never meant to do it all and carry it all for everybody all the time, right? And you need to get that in our heads, that we were never meant to do that, right? And there are people out there that are smarter than us, that have far more expertise than us, that can help us in areas that we lack. And that's not a sign of weakness. To me, that's a sign of strength, right? You're reaching out for someone else to say, I don't know how to help her anymore. I've done all I know to do. Can you help her? That is strength. And you are teaching your kid to 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 advocate for themselves, but to find people who can help them and not showing that it's weakness or you're not good enough, because that has nothing to do with it. God designed us all very unique, right? And we all have these unique purposes and drives and strengths. He didn't make us all the same. If we were all the same, we'd be robots, just all trucking along, one after the other, doing the same thing every day and day out. And that's not how we're designed. And I think it's important for mamas to hear that it's okay to ask for help. Now you need to find the right help, right? And sometimes I don't think that that's always whatever Facebook says or whatever Instagram says, right? That's not always the best kind of help. But also knowing your mama intuition and hearing that inner voice in you and trusting that voice, right? That if something is wrong with your kids. This is different behavior. They're not acting the same. This is not normal teen behavior, and trusting that instinct, and then trusting the instinct that you're going to find them the help that they need.
Yeah. Okay, so we know we have a kid who is either having a mental health crisis or is showing signs of mental health issues. And we know that the waiting list for mental health treatment is super long in most areas of the country right now. So I think as parents, we do have the ability to make some foundational changes to our child's physical health that can help support their mental health while we're waiting on that specialized mental health help that they need, right? And I love that you said at the top of the show that you just got your functional medicine certification. And so you're speaking my language in terms of supporting brain health with sleep and nutrition and optimizing stress. And what would be, your top tips for parents of teens? How can they plus up that physical health, that brain health, to give kids a fighting chance once they actually can get that specialized help too?
First and foremost, I think it's about setting boundaries with these children, right? You don't need to have the phone 24 hours, 7 days a week, right? There's so much junk on those things that they don't need to see. And it's not good for their brains to be looking at a screen as they lay down to go to bed. But they can't go to bed because now they've gotten sucked into watching videos on TikTok, right? With Chloe, we set a very clear boundary. At 9 o'clock, the phone is coming to me. I'm sorry. I don't care if your friends do. I don't care, right? And that's okay. It's okay if they get mad at you, right? It's okay. But setting that boundary, because what you're doing is protecting them, right? You're protecting them from the scroll, the endless scroll, and the mindless staring at a screen, and then filling their minds with just worldly junk, right? But you're also allowing their brains time to rest and to reset and to follow the normal circadian rhythms, right? We know that sleep is crazy important, right? To overall brain health and growth and development. They need sleep. And so, for Chloe, we took her phone at 9 o'clock. Sorry about your bad luck. The phone is coming to my possession. And I gave her a melatonin every night at the same time I took her phone. So I wanted her asleep by 10 p.m. And I know that sounds crazy when you're having teens, right? But they need restful sleep. They just do.
Sure, and not to mention the blue light exposure keeps the brain from releasing melatonin that says it's time to go to sleep.
And the other thing about that is she couldn't reach for the phone as soon as her eyes opened, right? Because we also know that for brain health and to keep the normal circadian rhythm of how our bodies were designed, we need to see sunlight first thing in the morning, right? You need to open the blinds, let your body or go walk outside and see that sunlight in your eyes, because that helps the brain know, okay, it's morning, and then I can produce more melatonin at the proper time, right? These are all things, and you don't need blue light exposure in the morning. There is research study after research study about not picking up a phone, and this is for adults too, not picking up a phone for at least 30 minutes in the morning. Allowing your brain time to wake up, to see the sunlight, to kind of get going, right? The blue light is not good. The phone is not good. As soon as you open your eyes, you don't need to see the smut that's happening in the world, right? You need to see, I mean, and the other thing is open up the Bible for the first for in the morning, right? Sunshine in the Bible and let God's word renew your mind, right? And set your footing for the day. But also it's about proper nutrition with the kids, right? I mean, have a night like where you cook together in the evening and you're setting them up with vegetables and proper nutrition and the vitamins and the nutrients that their growing developing bodies need, right? Have them do something. I mean, Chloe was always a competitive cheerleader, so her exercise was never a problem for her, but I do think that it is very important for them to move their body in some sort of way. I mean, and I understand that we live in this gaming society, right? Both my boys were gamers, huge gamers. But it's like you need to have at least 20 or 30 minutes a day where you're on a slow-paced walk outside, right? Because all that, even a little bit of exercise is releasing those endorphins, right? That helps with mood. It's proven in research after research that sunshine and moving your body helps with mood, right? And so when you take away some of the stimulants that they have, the kids have at their, exposure, and taking away a phone goes for taking away the games and the TVs at night too, right? Like I do not like for my kids didn't do it, but I do not like for kids to fall asleep to a TV. Like it needs to be turned off, right? It's still blue light, it's still noise, it's still you can't really rest when there's all of that noise in the background. So all of that to say is to set boundaries, right? Proper nutrition, proper sleep. All of those are super and so important for our children's, their mental health, their brain and body growth and development, but also for parents. I mean, like that's things that we can all do to help improve our overall health and mindset.
Yeah. Great advice. Okay, so Jen, how can our listeners find more of you and from you?
So I have a website, warriormomcoach.net. There's free resources on there. There is a link to our Facebook community that's free. That's just moms that have, come together. I mean, there's things that I post in there, but it's also if you need prayer or anything like that. And again, that goes back to not doing this alone, to not navigating it. All of the moms in that Facebook community have navigated something, right? It may not all be the exact same circumstance, but there's been some sort of issue with their children or their spouse that they need community for. The book is on Amazon, Warrior Mom Rising. It's on Amazon. But anything, emailing me and all of that contact information is on my website.
All right, fantastic. Jen Robb, thank you so much for being with us today. Moms, I hope you feel a little bit smarter after spending this hour with her and hearing all of this fantastic advice about supporting teens with mental health issues. So if you loved us, we would love it if you would follow us on social media at The Brainy Moms. You can find us at thebrainymoms.com. And until next time, we'll catch you later.